Hi everyone, I'm Joel Chasnoff and welcome to FIDF Live. I'm standing right now on a hilltop in Sderot. You can see the town behind me. Now Sderot is a very small town, only about 27,000 people. If you visit Israel for a week or even a month, chances are Sderot wouldn't be on your itinerary. And yet all of us have heard of Sderot, because when there is a war, Sderot is barraged with rockets from Hamas. And the reason is clear. Gaza is right behind us. Right now, from where I'm standing, Gaza is about 700 meters away. You can literally see the fence separating Gaza from Israel. And during our most recent conflict, Operation Guardian of the Walls, hundreds of rockets were launched from Gaza into Sderot. The people of Sderot were literally living inside their bomb shelters. Right now, it feels like life is back to normal. Life in Sderot is tranquil and calm. Stores are open, people are out getting coffee, and kids are going to school. However, it would be a mistake to think that the threat is no longer here. We cannot be fooled by the silence. The fact of the matter is, Hamas has not suddenly decided that Israel has a right to exist and that Israelis have the right to live in peace. No. Our borders are safe for one reason only, because the soldiers of the IDF are standing guard over them. They're protecting Israel by land, by sea, and from the air. Tonight, we're taking you to each and every one of Israel's borders. The goal is to understand the threats and to meet the soldiers who ensure that life prevails. We're going to talk to them about what they went through during Operation Guardian of the Walls. We'll even go with them on an IDF mission. So stay with us and find out what it's like for them to keep Israel's borders safe. The threat from Gaza to Israel is on the land, but it's also at sea. I'm standing now on a naval base in Israel South, near Gaza. With me is Captain Erez. He works on a Dvorah boat. So first, Captain Erez, thanks for joining us here on FIDF Live.
It's my pleasure, thank you. Thank you for having me.
So first of all, I want to ask you, what is your job exactly as a Dvorah boat commander?
As a patrol boat commander, I'm in charge of basically preventing any terrorist attempts to penetrate our borders at sea with Gaza, while also protecting civilians from terror attacks both at sea or onshore, and defending Israel's strategic infrastructures in the region, which are plenty. And I'd say in addition, one of the main jobs of the Navy in general, and our job as patrol boats, is to basically ensure the crucial freedom of movement, both of commerce and of ships, merchant ships that are traveling with commerce to and out of Israel, to allow import and export and basically control the financial and territorial waters of Israel.
Operation Guardian of the Walls. I know it was an intense period for you and your crew. Tell me what you were doing and what it was like.
We are here to be an aggressive, reactive, defensive force in order to counter terrorism, whether it's at sea or on the shoreline, and basically protect our interests in the region.
Now, during Operation Guardian of the Walls, we heard a lot about rockets, more than 4,000 rockets fired from Gaza at Israel. However, there were attacks at sea as well. For one of the first times ever, Hamas used an underwater drone to try to penetrate the border. And during Operation Protective Edge in 2014, Hamas commandos came out of the water and tried to cross onto the beach in Israel. So first of all, is this a pattern that Hamas is using these techniques in water, and how does the Navy respond?
Well, in 2014, things were a lot different in the world in general. So obviously terrorist organizations also develop in accordance. So our threats become more vivid and more actual. I'd say that, when dealing with terrorists, there's a multitude of maritime threats. It varies from surface terrorist vessels to drone strikes, underwater attacks, and even all the way up to rockets and missiles fired from Gaza Strip towards us at sea. And obviously the complexity and elusiveness of the medium in which we operate, which is the sea, basically amplifies those threats and demands us to increase our awareness and readiness. And as you've mentioned, it's true, Hamas did try to launch an attack, an underwater attack during this operation, which the Navy successfully neutralized with help and use of the Air Force and the Army Israeli's collaboration. And I'd say that at the end of the day, you know, terrorist organizations, they get more technological and more advanced, but so do we. And we have all the means necessary in order to protect our country, our people, and ourselves.
The work of the Navy is crucial in part because Israel's water border is its longest border.
It is. I mean, the Navy operates on so many fronts, so professionally and so quietly. That's why you don't hear about it a lot. And people go out, you know, go to the beach on Saturdays, having fun. I go to the beach, I look at the water, and I see borders. I see the northern border with Lebanon and Rosh Hanikah. I see the southern border with Gaza, and the Eilat with Jordan and Egypt. I think the crews, the boats, the patrol boats, they all do such an amazing job, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, throughout the year, winter, summer, you name it. A lot of fronts, but also a lot of technology, great people, great personnel, and great backbone and support from base. We can get the job done, it's okay. We'll handle it.
Captain Erez mentioned fronts. Here in the south, the obvious front is obviously Gaza and the threat from Hamas. But there's that other front, way up north, with Hezbollah. And that's where we're headed next, to the military base that is closest to Hezbollah in the northernmost part of Israel. So right now we're at Gladiola. Gladiola is in the extreme north of Israel. How extreme? It's actually the northernmost IDF outpost in the entire country. We're literally right on top of the border with Lebanon. So when we talk about borders, it's the soldiers right here at Gladiola. They happen to be from Givati and Gdud Rotem. They're the ones who are currently standing guard on this sector of the border. And it's completely isolated. Just getting here was what they call a sipur, a story from Kiryat Shmona to get all the way up to this part of the country in the north. What we're gonna do right now is see part of the base and visit their observation post. Showing me around is Moshe. He is the Mem, the platoon commander here at Gladiola. Good to meet you.
Good to meet you too.
I'm so happy you could be with us at FIDF Live. Show us around.
Follow me, I'll show you around. So let me show you around my neighborhood.
Yeah.
So as you can see, up east, you can see the large hill, which is the Hermon mountain. Beyond the Hermon mountain is the Syrian Hermon, which means Syria is down there. Right below us, you can see the Lebanon villages. The whole area in front of us is Lebanon.
Everything in front of us is Lebanon.
Everything surrounding us is Lebanon.
I want to hear about Operation Guardian of the Walls, Shomer Chomot. What was that like for you and your platoon while you're standing here on the border?
التي ستنزل على تل أبيب وغير تل أبيب إذا اعتدت على لبنان.
So as you may have heard, we had riots going on down there, right next to the village. Which, as a matter of fact, we have a team now getting ready to go down there and deal with the aftermaths of those riots. So yalla, come along.
אנחנו נמצאים בעיכול החטיפה, שנת 2000, הייתה פה חטיפה של 3 חיילים. זה נקודה שהיא מאוד רגישה בגזרה.
So to summarize, we're in a very sensitive territory. In the year 2000, 3 Israeli soldiers were kidnapped from this territory. It's called Ezor HaTifa, the area of the kidnapping. As a result of Operation Guardian of the Walls, there's been a lot of rioting by Lebanese civilians on this border. And one of the things they've done, in addition to throwing rocks and other balagan and chaos, is they put up flags. You can see those flags in the background. And the purpose of those Hezbollah and Lebanese flags is to challenge Israeli sovereignty. This area we're in right now is operated sovereign to Israel. There's no question of it, but their idea is to challenge it. And so today's mission is to remove those flags. So I won't lie to you, this part of the day is a little bit nerve-wracking. We've been talking with the soldiers and heard that there is Hezbollah spotted up in these hills. As well, there's also a United Nations base right above them that is supposed to do their part to maintain the quiet on this border. But the idea that this is a quiet, pastoral, like Switzerland kind of place, it's a myth. I've personally seen with my own eyes just a few minutes ago, Hezbollah moving up there in the territory. And that's why the soldiers are here and doing the job. With the mission complete, it's time for the troops and the FIDF team to head back to the post on the northern border. But this border, it's still cham, as they say in Hebrew, hot and vulnerable. Of course, the IDF has our own eyes watching as well. Up here in these hills, we have what's known as tatzpitaniyot, observers who are keeping track of this entire operation, and it's good to know that we're in their eyes and in good hands as well. It's been an amazing and intense day at Gladiola, but before we pack it up, I've just got to point this out. Friends of the IDF, and you might be asking, why would this sign be here at this remote outpost? It's because FIDF supports Israel's soldiers from the most northern point to all the way down south. From here, we're heading out to our next border visit, Jerusalem. In our episode today, we're talking about borders. There are the frontline borders, Lebanon, Egypt, Gaza. But this, right behind me, is the last line of defense. Why? Because at this checkpoint, the Maccabim checkpoint, which is in the center of the country, near the town of Modi'in, this checkpoint, through it is the road to and from the capital, Jerusalem.
The combat soldiers along the eastern border operate in checkpoints and along the security fence. As a part of the defense fort, we learn to use combat techniques and skills to identify terrorists, weapons, explosives, and much more that may transfer here in different ways and prevent any threats.
This is Captain Ilan. He's a company commander in Lahav Brigade of the Ta'oz Battalion of the Mishtara Tzva'i military police. And to start out, tell us, Ilan, about Ta'oz Battalion.
In Ta'oz Battalion, we have 4 companies. One of them I'm leading, the Plugat Lahav company. In our company, there are men and women. All of them are soldiers, and our main goal is to protect the civilian of Israel.
So I have a logistical question. During Operation Guardian of the Walls, there were many air raid sirens, as you know. What happens to the soldiers at the post during those air raid sirens?
During the air raid sirens, our soldiers are continuing to do their work and staying in the same post to keep our civilians safe.
The sad reality is that many terrorists also want to target soldiers, and they know that there always will be soldiers at this checkpoint. So I want to ask Captain Ilan, how do you deal with the fact that you and your team are threatened?
We had many situations of throwing rocks at us or Molotov bottles were exposed on our post. I'm very proud to say that my soldiers doing all the things successfully to prevent those things from being, and I'm very proud of them.
But it also means you have to be on high alert, protecting against yourselves,
Yeah.
even as you stand guard.
The meaning of this is the being high alert and to be in focus 24/7, to recognize the situation and to deal with it.
And here we are, the border with Egypt. Today I'm traveling with the soldiers of Karkal. They're the unit who's responsible for guarding this border down here as well as the one with Jordan. You can see the border fence behind me, an Egyptian outpost in the background. This is what's known as a peaceful border. We are, after all, at peace with Egypt. But just because it's a quiet border, that doesn't mean that there are no threats. We're now going to accompany the soldiers of Karkal on today's mission, and they'll tell us more about what those threats are. Yaira,
Yes,
you're a sergeant in Karkal.
that's correct.
Stationed down here on the border with Egypt. I want to hear what exactly your job is.
So we are part of Israel's Border Protection Corps, right? So that's our job, is to protect and watch over Israel's borders.
Now this is known as a quiet border. We're at peace with Egypt. So what does that mean for your job? Why are you even doing
Yes.
this if it's a peaceful border?
So thankfully, we do have a peace agreement with Egypt, but our biggest threat here is ISIS. ISIS is found in the Sinai Peninsula. Since 2014, there's been a huge ramp up in their activities against Egyptian citizens, against the Egyptian army itself. And because we're so close to them, there's always a threat that it crosses over. You see this fence right here, that's the border. 2 seconds, something could come over, right? So we're here to not only protect the land, but also all the people who live in this section, in this area of the border. We have the biggest piece of border in the entire army. And there's a lot of settlements, of farming communities, civilians who live along this stretch of land, and it's our job to make sure that they stay safe.
Now I know items are also attempted to be smuggled
Yes.
in. What are some of those items, and how does your work fit into
So
that?
that's our second biggest task here, is dealing with drug smuggling. Over this fence, they'll throw it over, they can cut out a little piece of fence and push it through, but we're talking about 30 seconds, right? Chick-chuck, in and out. So we are here to make sure that that doesn't happen.
I have to ask about your personal story as well. You're from
Yeah, of
Vancouver,
course.
BC.
Yeah, really not from the desert.
Not from the desert, but not only did you come here voluntarily to serve in a combat unit, but your brother did too.
So I am following in my brother's footsteps, but both of us are following in the footsteps of our grandfather. My mother's father fought in World War II, at the tail end of World War II in Italy, and straight from there he came to Israel and in his American Army jacket fought in the War of Independence. Even my father had wanted to serve and didn't get the chance, and so I really feel like I'm connecting with my family, I'm connecting with my religion, with my kind of ethnic cultural background. And it's amazing to be a part of something that's bigger than myself. It's taught me more about myself than I could have ever asked for.
I'm sure.
So, yeah, I appreciate every day.
As we continue to talk to soldiers at every border, one thing I'm realizing is that every border has its own unique challenges.
Right.
So what are the unique challenges and what's the unique mission down here along the border with Egypt?
So the same way there are certain organizations that are located only in the north, in the south where we are, we're the only ones that are dealing with ISIS. Physical ISIS, located in the Sinai Peninsula, and they're right here. You can't see them from where we're standing, but they're here. Anything that goes on here along this border with Egypt is immediately a threat to us, and ISIS is attacking within Egypt. They're destroying army bases that are located along this border. So the importance, the physical threat is, we feel it. And it's incredibly important to make sure that we're here and we're ready 24/7.
Yaira, I want to thank you for spending some time with us and for all that you and your soldiers do.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
The desert down here on the border with Egypt is vast. But there's something even more vast: Israel's skies. We're going to meet the soldiers who protect Israel's skies by operating Iron Dome. Next. we talk about borders. We talk about defending Israel from land, from sea, from the air. But in this case, we are also talking about defending the country from the land to the air. I'm standing at an Iron Dome outpost. During Operation Guardian of the Walls, the Iron Dome soldiers protected Israel from the more than 4,000 rockets fired from Gaza. Now I want to give a little perspective on 4,000 rockets. That's one rocket for every 2,000 Israeli citizens. If we were to extrapolate that to the United States, that would be the equivalent of more than 150,000 rockets fired at American territory. And yet the damage to Israel, Israeli property, and Israeli civilians was minimal. And there's one reason why. It's because of the soldiers of Iron Dome. Right now, we're going to visit with a commander in this Iron Dome outpost. Let's meet Second Lieutenant Sara to tell us more about her job and what her team did during Operation Guardian of the Walls. Second Lieutenant Sara, first of all, great to meet you and thanks for being on FIDF Live.
Nice to meet you, Joel.
I want to hear about Operation Guardian of the Walls. What was your job as a commander and what was your team doing during the operation?
Okay, I'll start with my team. My team was here in the launching site, and their mission was to make sure that the launcher never stops shooting. In the opposite side, I have two jobs. My first job is to be here, a commander to my soldiers, and make sure they're fine. The other job is to be in the launching room and launch every missile that's going out.
What is that like emotionally to know that your job is so closely tied to the mission?
It's a huge responsibility. People are sitting in bomb shelters and they're depending on us to save their lives.
The technology behind Iron Dome is incredible, but of course, behind even the greatest technology, there are even greater people. And I want to hear about the people you work with. What was it like to go through Operation Guardian of the Walls as a team that you were in charge of?
It was very intense. The mission is above all, and me and my soldiers really became family after experiencing everything together.
I would imagine that operating Iron Dome is a complicated job. I want to hear about the challenges of working with the system.
It requires expert communication, split-second decision-making, no room for errors. Lives depend on us.
I know that as an Iron Dome commander, you're actually part of a much bigger aerial defense system. Can you tell me about how your team fits in and that aerial defense system overall?
The first level is the Iron Dome, and it is used for short-range rockets. The second level, we have David Sling, and it is used for medium-range rockets. And the next one, the last one, it is the long-range rockets, and it is the Arrow system is used for.
Now I know that even out here in your tiny outpost, you have a connection to FIDF.
Yes, as you can see, it gets really hot in here, so FIDF provided us this Pinat Zula.
These mobile climate shelters, little places where soldiers can hang out and get some much-needed rest in the shade when they have time.
Thank you, FIDF, for thinking of us and supporting us.
And I want to thank you, Second Lieutenant Sara, for everything you and your Iron Dome team did for the country during Operation Guardian of the Walls. The threat is here. The threat is now. The threat is everywhere. The latest operation is finished, but for the soldiers of the IDF who stand guard on Israel's borders, the work is never done. We at Friends of the IDF stand by our soldiers, always. I'm Joel Chasnoff, signing off from the town of Sderot, less than a kilometer from Gaza.